Hi, I'm Danny Ellis, aka Danny Blues. Well, I was born in Huntingdon, Tennessee in 1959, a little small town in Tennessee, and my parents were farmers, and my father, he played banjo and guitar, so it was kind of like in my loins, I guess you could say, to be for music. But when I was like, just big enough to walk, I used to walk along with my parents picking cotton, believe it or not. My parents normally would work for other people, and they would, when there was cotton time, of course, they picked cotton. And then when it was, time for the corn, they would help pick the corn and stuff, and they were paid, typically then by the bushel or by the pound when it comes to the cotton. I remember when I was 8 years old, I became an entrepreneur at 8 years old. My parents got me a bicycle, and they had bought me a shoe shine kit, because I always asked my parents for shoe shine kits, because I knew other friends that had went and they would go to some of the local bars areas and do shoe shining. So, my parents were very poor, so for me to get a bicycle was just
it's a big deal.
Big deal, yes. Yeah. And I wanted to have some money so I could buy little toy cars or things like that, stuff that I wanted, toys. Actually, my half brother Roger, actually, between him and my dad, and I was probably about 4 or 5 years old at the time. There were really no problems with, you didn't have the crime then as you have today. I think the world we live in is a little more twisted today. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
My parents decided to go to the big city of Chicago when I was about 4 years old. My father worked for a company, company that put up tents for circuses and fairs. But I remember that my father had hurt his back and had to have back surgery. So by one of those tents at one time, so that kind of put him out of the business doing that, because that's a lot of heavy work. Right,
lifting.
And then, I guess that's where I got the entrepreneur part. My father became since he couldn't get a job because of his back, because he was on disability, he created his own. He went around and picked up people's junk that they threw away, washing machines and dryers, and he would take the motors out, and he would pick up old used cars and take the engines apart and sell the alternators and the starters, and so he made a good living, with everything, and he did what he had to do, I guess. Now that I think about it, I guess I never really thought about it before until I start to tell the story, and now I think back, and I guess that's kind of what I do. I do what it takes to provide for my family. And he never cheated anyone. And he always tried to see the good side to people.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of try to do that as well, although in the back of my mind, I'm not naive enough to know, that there is no bad people. Which, when the guy said, hey, I'll get paid next Friday, I'll pay you then. Oh, okay, you just pay me then. And you think after, a dozen of those people don't come back, you think you kind of get the hint that, sometimes these people are just taking you. But he never gave up. So he says, yeah, but I help somebody out. I come from a Baptist family, Southern Baptist. All my family, they all went to church and all. And my father always, my mother, she finished the 6th grade is as far as she could go because they had to stop and work the farm. And my father, he had only went to the 3rd grade. So even though my father couldn't read or write,
made a living.
He made a good living. And some people say, well, some people's aspect of what a good living is different. It doesn't mean you were rich or anything like that. That's not what a good living is. A good living is knowing that you never cheated anyone, knowing that everything that you have on the table and you have in your home is something that you work for, you paid for, and you earned it honestly, no matter how big the riches are, knowing that you earned it yourself. And that's what they call a good living, whether it's large or whether it's small. And that's pretty much what a good living is, and doing the best you can. And you don't have to go to church to be a worshiper or to believe in God. It's always good to take the time to do so. But there are people that go to church, and then when they're done from church, they go and they steal the neighbor's dog. It's about how you live and not what you do. Behind the scenes. I became a shoeshine boy, and I think it was 1967. Yeah, 1967, 68. So I was probably closer to 9. And so I did that for a couple of years, and I made enough money to, any incidentals I needed, things that I wanted that my mother couldn't afford. And my mother worked at Libby's canning factory. She also worked for Tupperware, the Tupperware company, and doing the Teflon. So that took a toll on her with her lungs, breathing the Teflon over the years. And so they both had some health problems because of the different jobs they did. But how many people can say they picked cotton and been a shoeshine boy? It's a total different world we live in now. My first 4 years in the Air Force, I was a computer operator programmer. What that was that was my career field. I went in right after I graduated from high school in June of 1978. I actually enlisted in September of 1977. So I was what you call a delay enlistment. So my rank actually went from September of 1977. I enlisted in Chicago. After I was a child, we only lived in Chicago probably a year or so. We had moved to Peoria, Illinois, and that's where I grew up. And of course, we always went back to Tennessee, near Huntingdon, to see our family, about every year. And one year, my junior year of high school, we had moved there, and I went to junior high there in Tennessee there. We were there for about 8 months, had to live there because my father was going around all the area and gathering up all the old cars. My father had a piece of property that he had bought, and had, I think, 2 or 3 acres, and he stacked all these cars. And then he called in a car crushing company, and then he removed all the cars at one time, and they came in and crushed the cars and put them on 18-wheelers and rolled them out. And so it took him about 8 months to do all that. Well, The classification was computer operator programmer as far as classification, but I ended up going into the field of communications within computers, communications field, which I ended up working for 25th NORAD. We took care of all the communications from the different bases and from the missile site, the missile silos. We had a battle staff area at the 25th NORAD, and some of those things I can't talk about because they were classified. Those were some good days, and when I was in a building designed to take a direct nuclear hit, so I was a operator at sometimes at night. We would have to work as the operator for the missile silos. They have like the little stations that has the phones would come out and they would come to our section, and we would have operators at night to direct their calls, to the base or outside line to talk to their families and stuff like that. McCord Air Force Base. And so I decided, well, after my first 4 years, I had a top secret security clearance because in the capacity that I had that type of clearance. Well, I decided I wanted to do something outside, so I crossed over into aircraft maintenance and became an aircraft, what they call electro-environmental systems. So I was an aircraft electrician, as well as cryogenics, and worked on mostly just about every plane in the inventory. Now I think about it, C-5s, C-130s here at Patrick Air Force Base. We were with the rescue unit. My unit was the one that with the Cobart Towers when it blew up. I used to sleep on that wall many nights in Saudi Arabia. I was supposed to be there the night that it blew up, but my daughter was born with a health condition that had postponed my deployment for another 2 to 4 weeks for the next deployment. So therefore I wasn't there that night when they blew up the Cobart Towers. But many of my friends, when I went back there a couple weeks later, we walked through, and of course we saw the stuff on the walls, and knowing that our friends had been killed, and it's one of those things you just go through. And of course our little nickname for our daughter is my angel. I deal with it every day. I have dreams and stuff from back then, but it doesn't stop me from doing my everyday job. It doesn't stop me from living, so it's one of those trumpets we get over. And then I was in that career field for 16 years, and I always had a sideline job all the years in the military. I picked up a little hobby, learning how to make furniture, and before you know it, I created my own style, and before you know it, again, being an entrepreneur, I started building cabinets and aquariums and stuff, furniture for people, and making money on the side, a little extra money. So, being a military person, it's not the best pay in the world. It's kind of like a school teacher or law enforcement or fire department. They're good service jobs, for the public, but they're not the best paying. And then before you know it, I was an instructor at Edwards Air Force Base in California. I was teaching people how to make furniture and how to use the machines safely, and did that for about 4 years, and I got orders to go overseas to Korea. I went to Korea, and while I was over there, I was already into doing ceramics and stuff, as a hobby again. I went over to Korea and got even more involved in the ceramics, and because it took time, it was creative art. So when I left Korea, I went to the Philippines, and over there, before I knew it, I was teaching woodworking. Then I was teaching ceramic art because they didn't have any good valid instructors. So again, I was working as an entrepreneur, subcontractor for the military as an instructor for woodworking and ceramics. And before you know it, I was teaching toll painting. That's how to cut out a piece of wood. Like for you take a piece of wood, you cut out like a duck, and you paint it to look like a duck. That's what they call toll painting. I won in 1989, out of first, second place, or out of first, second, and third place in 1989. I won first and third for art, and my first place was a doll I made out of sawdust. Carved him out, put silk materials. It's an old Japanese art custom. And that was my first place. And third place was a ceramic Indian warrior, eagle warrior. I still have the doll. I don't have the Indian warrior because it got broke in shipment. I was there in the Philippines during Mount Pinatubo. And again, I saw more stuff because the volcanoes blew and saw dead people along the side of the road. I was basically kind of homeless for a week because the military didn't know what to do with us all. I mean, there were so many people they couldn't get us out in time. So luckily that at the time I was married to a Filipino girl that had family. So I took showers with the water hose outside and did that for a week until they finally rescued us on the USS Roanoke. So I left with a pair of flip-flops and shorts and a tank top. And I started off from scratch again. Came to Patrick Air Force Base, and that's where I retired from. I got to Patrick. Also, I applied at the wood shop there as an instructor, and I was an instructor there for about 4 years, just before I retired. And so I've built a lot of different things over the years, and when I came to Patrick, a lot of people wanted to retire, and they wanted presentation cases of all their medals and their ribbons. They wanted to be able to commemorate their lifetime of service. So I used to make those beautiful shadow boxes.
Cool.
And I used to make them from scratch and put them in, and I've made thousands of those over the years. And I've been retired now almost 16 years in June. I slowly got into doing the karaoke and DJ because coming back from the old high school days, I always loved music. And when I was overseas in Korea, I was a DJ in Korea. They loved having an American DJ for the nightclub, so I did that and paid great.
That's cool.
I was one of the only one as far as an American DJ in the nightclubs over there. So I started collecting, did my music together and all that, and started as a DJ. I started doing DJ work, and I realized that there's just so many people that call themselves DJs, and all they are is just people that play music. You know, they're not really a quote DJ. And a DJ is an entertainer. He's one that, you know, keeps the crowd at a wedding or a party. He's one that, you know, that gets everybody up and dancing and makes people having fun. That's what a DJ is. Maybe it should have been a different name for it than DJ. You know, and a lot of those DJs today are losing their jobs due to the iPad or iPod jukebox, and because they're not entertainers. So I thought, well, you know, I need an edge. I saw karaoke. I'm like, you know what? This is great. So I started DJ and karaoke. Satellite Beach area, Florida. So people started hiring me because I could do both, DJ and do karaoke. So I was getting jobs that the karaoke people weren't getting because I had DJ music. So when people weren't singing, I could play music. And of course, the opposite, I was getting gigs that DJs weren't getting because they didn't have the karaoke.
You diversified.
So I diversified. I saw an opportunity and I took it. I needed to make that little extra buck, and plus I loved it. You know, I've always loved music. And then some people say, well, what do you sing? I'm like, well, I'm not a singer. They said, well, we're hiring you to do karaoke. What do you mean you don't sing? And my quote was, tell them was, you're hiring me so your customers can sing. That way they get thirsty and they buy booze. You know, my deal with you is my booze is free. So you want me singing, I get thirsty, I drink for free.
There you go.
What do you want? You know? So they're like, wow, we never really saw it that way. And I said, exactly. So my deal is to get them to sing so they get thirsty. So they buy your booze. Like, wow. And sure enough, because I didn't sing,
Most karaoke hosts kind of start things out, don't they?
They kind of start things out. And
People
of course,
are a little nervous to get up there. And
yeah, of course, I learned that over time that I'm going to have to sing sometimes. So I picked up a couple of songs here and there over time. And so over time, I learned to sing a few songs. And when it was appropriate, I would sing. But I ended up getting a good crowd people liked because they got to sing more. At my shows, they got to sing more. Because why? Because the karaoke host wasn't up there trying to steal the show.
you see that a lot.
Right. So I did well. So I got hired a lot. And then my heritage, my father being Cherokee Indian, I opened up an Indian art gallery and rode that there for a while and still did the karaoke, and thought to myself, why don't I have a karaoke store? So I closed the Indian art because after a few years it started to go down, you know. So switched my hat over to owning a karaoke store. Then I started selling karaoke to just about every karaoke host in the county. And then some. Go even a couple of counties away. So I was known as the karaoke king, so to speak. And over time, you know, I would sing karaoke when the store was closed and all. And so before you know it, I would get jobs as doing weddings and things. My wife, Suzan'ah, she would sing to some of the karaoke tracks, because she was a great singer, but we didn't have a band. So we used the karaoke tracks.
Sure.
So we got hired for doing weddings and things like that during the cocktail hour, she was giving them a nice show. And then after that first hour, we switched our hat to the DJ side, and she would show them the dances, and I would do all the DJ music, and we would have fun. So we were quite the duo there for a long time. And as time went on, I learned some Frank Sinatra songs, and I always loved the blues, though. It just got to my bones. And so, I did some Bobby Darin songs, but my favorite song in the whole world was Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because if you just take away, it's like the banana, you take away all the peel. You got the purity of the banana. Like, if you take away all the bad stuff in our world, you got the purity underneath, And it is a wonderful world we live in. You just gotta enjoy it with the fullest you can enjoy it while you're here, and do the best you can. So I started singing, and before you know it, I always thought, well, golly, I got this. I always had a little bit of a rough, raspy voice anyway. But people seemed to like it a little bit, and so I learned more and more songs, and heck, I don't even know how many songs I know now. I probably know, 300 or 400 songs probably now.
Wow.
But the blues and the rock and roll, everything from Bad Moon Rising to, Sweet Home Chicago, to Wonderful World, which is my favorite, which, we recorded as a duet with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I even wrote a few songs of my own, which I always wanted to do. And so I wrote a few songs, and the rest is pretty much history, and I never really realized, how much people enjoyed it. Bout of cancer came around in 2004. I was on a cruise ship, with some friends, and I had this big old lump at the bottom of the throat I could hardly swallow. But I entered a contest, and I won. I won a karaoke singing contest. Don't figure, but I got home 2 weeks later and found out that I had throat cancer.
Wow.
37 treatments of radiation and chemo. I was back to, of course I had dry mouth from all the radiation and stuff and the chemo, but, a year later I'm, back trying to do it and singing, and after 3 years go by, my cancer come back. And then they cut part of my tongue off, and they cut me from my ear to my throat, took all my lymph nodes out there on my right side, and and that was my second bout. So then I was good for a little over 5 years. Then my throat cancer came back.
How'd you know?
I was had a sore throat. For about 6 months I was going back and forth. And of course they didn't see anything, but bottom line is, I guess if the gene is in you, you don't change your your diet or your habits, or no one really knows, so it came back just before I finished my album, and thankfully I had a good producer to help me, and we got her done, and so it's probably my first, and it might be my last album.
And you got the news right after your CD was done?
Well, it's like on Thursday, my producer called me and said, hey, your album's all done, and I'm sending it to Nashville tomorrow to be mastered. And then we send it off to the CD company to produce, and you'll You'll have your CD in about 2 to 3 weeks. That was great news. I was on top of the world on Thursday. Then on Friday, my doctor calls me and tells me I got stage 4 throat cancer. So, you know, the irony of all of it, you know, sometimes you're on top of the world one day and not so much the next, but, you know, it's been a good life. I am going to miss singing. It's the one thing I enjoy most. I have 4 wonderful children. I have a great wife that supports me. I have great friends. And it's the friends and family that gets you through it. But there's nothing like singing and expressing yourself. And seeing the smiles on people's faces in front of the stage, in the audience, telling them how much they enjoyed you. There's no better feeling. It's kind of like that dad that saw his baby for the first time. But it's different, you know? So only an entertainer can tell you that feeling. Like a father could only tell you to another father the feeling of seeing that child born the first time. Like a race car driver could only tell another race car driver how it felt to go around that track, to win that cup, or just to be on that track. Or a runner, you know, to get those hurdles, or to be in all the different facets of life. There are different kinds of highs. But it's like over the years, music has been the center of our hearts and souls. It always has been, and it probably always will be. From some of the songs that have been violent, creates violence. From some of the songs that they say blues, maybe kind of create a sad moment. Country to create a sad moment. It's not about those moments. It's what you perceive it to be. If you perceive that song to be sad for you, then it's sad. If it's a pick 'em up song, it's a pick 'em up song. It's what you perceive out of it. So there is no exact science in music. You just have to do it from your heart and your soul. And the ones that say they enjoyed it is because they felt it in their heart and soul too. So you transfer from your inner self to someone else. And there's no better feeling to look in someone's eyes and to know that you made them happy. It's not just for a moment.
So you're going in for surgery in January 2014. What did they tell you they're gonna do?
Well, it's in my voice box. So they're gonna have to remove my voice box and reconstruct so I can eat. So, you know, it's gonna be a tough road, but
There's no way to reconstruct a voice box at this time?
no, we don't have that technology yet. So unfortunately, I'm hoping that maybe someday down the road I can give you one of those little electronic boxes with a little push button. I want to be like Elvis today. I sound like Elvis. I want to sound like Frank Sinatra. I could sound like Frank Sinatra. Or whoever.
You think you might keep performing? I know a lot of artists, even the ones who can sing, lip sync. Even the ones who are very...
Well, you know, I was feeling really bad at the fair. back in November, and my album had just came out, and someone said to me, he says, you know, well, why don't you just lip sync? And I always thought that was like kind of wrong, because I'm thinking, you know, the people didn't come out to pay money to watch me lip sync. But you know, and you hear a lot of controversy about, you know, different artists lip sync. And what they don't understand is that's that artist physically sang that song.
At one point, sure.
That's their voice. It's nobody, it's not Milli Vanilli. It's not someone else's voice. Right. It's their voice.
Right.
You're just mimicking it for that moment because they have a sore throat. They have throat cancer. So they don't want the fans to be disappointed.
I think what they're paying for is the performance.
Is the performance. So I went out there and I did the performance. That's how I learned this, is that I went out and I lip synced my performance. And several people told me that I told them that they said they couldn't even tell. And they said it didn't matter because they said they enjoyed me.
Yep.
They said I gave a great performance. And they knew I couldn't hardly talk and my voice was really raspy. And they said it didn't matter because they knew it was my voice because I'm the one who recorded those songs. But it was just nice for them to be able to see me perform them. You know? And so I have a whole different outlook on people that lip sync because it's all about the audience. It's about the audience and how they feel about it, because they get to see their star, or they get to see, you know, the person that they like, or they get to hear the music. They heard the music, they get to see it performed, you know, and that's what it's all about. Is because if you're an entertainer, it ain't about you. It ain't about you at all. It's about, you know, the people, how they take you and what they want to see you as, and they want to see you perform and they want to hear you, and so as long as they hear you and they see you, does it matter how you got there? The end result's the same.
The end result, I agree.
The end result's the same.
A lot of people have never been in a studio, and they don't understand the studio process, how many times you have to retake something, and it's not as glamorous as you would think it is.
Right, and you know, you'd be surprised at how many people out there, I mean, all the dances and stuff of some of the artists have to do because they're dancing around, they're flipping, they're jumping, and
performing.
And they're performing, and to give the best performance they can. They can't always catch their breath and sing the song with the gusto of that recorded version of what you want to hear.
A lot of people don't realize when you hear a final recorded track, you might be assembling 4 or 5 different takes of it to end up on it. And how do you can't do that in a live environment.
No, but the whole idea is in a live environment is that visual. It's the visual, you know, and otherwise you just listen to them on the radio. You wouldn't go to a concert.
Right.
So does it matter if as long as the overall concert came out and the audience was happy?
So you've had kind of a interesting relationship with your wife, Suzan'ah. And I understand that you proposed to her on a couple of different occasions in interesting ways. Why don't you tell me about how that went down?
Well, it took it took 3 times.
Yeah.
And the first time I proposed in a night, like a night
suit of armor?
A suit of armor.
Really?
But I went a little further.
Where'd you get a suit of armor?
I actually rented it, but there's this guy that I knew that had a ranch that and horses and cattle and stuff, and so Lamar said, "Hey, anytime you want to, one of the horses, let me know. I'll saddle one up for you." And so he did. He brought one over for me, and I wish I had it on video because it was, back then I was scared to death, but now I think about how funny it would be seeing it from a different perspective, where I get on this horse and I've got the armor on,
the whole thing, the whole body,
armor, and it's quite heavy because it's got metal on it. And I get on the horse, and of course the helmet or shield, or whatever you call it, the helmet, goes down. And I got this little slit you can see out of it. And so I get on the horse, and I'm at the time I'm working at a flea market where me and Susan both worked at the time, and so I had contacted Jacksonville because they're the ones that control the electronic sign on the freeway. So I called them and told them what I wanted to do, and so they said they would put it up on the sign for me. I'd call them, and then immediately they would put it on a sign at a certain time. So I did. So here it is. I get on the horse, and I'm, galloping up, which is about, a good 4 blocks, from the rear of the flea market. I'm kind of going on. All of a sudden, the helmet falls forward, and I can't see anything. Now, all of a sudden, the horse decides he wants to get going.
Oh, boy.
And I can't see nothing, and I'm trying to hold on for dear life. I'm like, whoa, whoa. Like, so finally, when I get the horse to stop, and I'm up against the telephone pole, and finally I could pop the thing where I could see where I'm at. I guess I was holding on for dear life, but no one saw this, thankfully, and it was just me. And then I just kind of eased on up to the front office, and I called her on the phone and said, "Hey, can you come outside?" And then, of course, she walked me out the sign. They put it up on the sign, "Will you marry me, Suzan'ah?" And of course, she said yes. And then I guess she was just caught up in the moment. And of course, the next day she comes back and said, "Well, I can't do that." And and so women, they get caught up in the moment. And the next time, I about killed myself on a skiing trip.
So she said yes.
Yeah.
And what happened after that? She got caught up in the moment,
and then she came back and says, "Well, I'm not ready to get married," and
How long after was that?
It was like 2 days.
Oh, so you had a couple days. You thought you were all done.
Yeah. Then, but
almost got killed on a horse.
Yeah.
And she turns around and says no.
Right.
No, she didn't give up.
So, but I didn't give up.
Okay.
And then,
how long further?
About 2 years after that, I proposed to her again.
You guys stayed together during that 2 years?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on again, off again, on again, off again.
Yeah, that's normal.
But hung in there. So for 7 years.
Wow.
So we went on a skiing trip, and I proposed to her again, and of course she said yes. And a couple days later, she come back. Well, actually, it was like 2 weeks that time.
Oh wow, had a little bit longer.
That's a little bit longer. But I guess all the charm wore off after we got back, and I had bruises all the way up my back.
Oh.
From falling down the ski slopes, trying to prove myself.
Sure.
But overall, we had this certain charisma, and we had this certain karma, and the music. The music's what brought us together.
Is that what you saw in her to begin with?
And yeah, and among several things, but I think that's really what really brought us together. I mean, ultimately, and was the music, and finally, she said yes. So.
Well, this is the third time?
Third time.
And how'd you do it the third time?
wow. Kind of escapes me.
Well, if you 2 times like that, escape me too.
Wow, I really don't remember now, to tell you the truth.
Well, we know she wasn't pregnant.
No. Trying to think where we at.
It was much less formal this time.
Yeah, it was. Actually, I think she may have. I think I had more or less just kind of like, well, we're gonna be boyfriend, girlfriend. I think it was more like I just kind of nonchalantly say, hey, why don't we might as well get married. She's like, well, we might as well, kind of thing. And it was during Christmas. I remember now. Yeah. I bought her this huge marquee ring, at the flea market. And it was something like $13,000. The guy gave it to me for like 60% off.
Wow, nice.
So, the guy had been robbed and having a hard time, so he let me make payments on it. So that was great. So I popped a question during the holidays, and she said yes, and before you know it, we were in Jamaica having a great time and honeymoon, and well, there's more to the story, but that has to be another day.
Make sure you live your bucket list. At this time, I would like to invite my wonderful wife, Suzan'ah, recording artist, to the stage to help me with this song. But it is a wonderful world to live in. Enjoy life to the fullest.